Well, hello, and welcome to our Voices Against Trafficking Zoom conference event. I'm Blanquita Cullum, and I am the co-founder and president of Voices Against Trafficking. We have a dynamic program for you today. And, we want you to understand that we believe in this motto of the strength of many voices speaking as one. And we are on a group of national and international partners from, oh my goodness, individuals, survivors, nonprofits, law enforcement agencies, legislators, media members, human rights advocates, and we are determined to be heard because the issue is so important. We want to thank all of our Voices Against Trafficking charter members, the Oregon State University Code Lab, and of course, Beulah's Place. And we find it very important for you to meet people that you need to know. And today we're starting off with a very significant guy who's terrific. He is the acting section chief of Homeland Security. I'm talking about Chris Olkers. He's a special agent. He's been a federal law enforcement officer for over 25 years, specializing in the area of human trafficking. In fact, the acting section chief for human trafficking at the center out of DC, but also in Minnesota, the Center for Countering Human Trafficking. It's called, like they do in DC, a lot of acronyms, CCHT. He's permanently assigned to Homeland Security investigations. He's done some amazing things, really on the ground with some very high level, high visibility events like the Super Bowl 52, the NCAA Final Four. Well, Chris is going to give you the information of why some of those events are really places where human trafficking occurs in big numbers. But here he is. We're honored to have him. Chris Olkers, thank you for joining us here on behalf of Voices Against Trafficking.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I welcome the opportunity to introduce everyone to the Center for Countering Human Trafficking, which is within the Department of Homeland Security. So the department in October of 2020 established the Center for Countering Human Trafficking, or the CCHT, and it has a couple of significant opportunities here where we are working to break down silos between the DHS components and teams by promoting collaboration together through 16 different components that work within the center. And by doing that, we're bringing together diverse expertise from across the DHS spectrum and allowing for sharing of best practices to achieve our mission in countering and human trafficking. DHS has provided direct resources towards the many different teams across here and allows us to make impactful investments with a unified DHS evaluation of success, and allows clearer accountability as the focus for human trafficking stems from the center. And by doing that, the center positions DHS to better implement and respond to the administration's 40 different novel priority actions in the National Action Plan for human trafficking. And it also ensures significant level of coordination and collaboration across many elements of the department. So our mission primarily, we have a couple of different primary missions, but our biggest mission here is to proactively identify, disrupt, and dismantle complex domestic and cross-border human trafficking organizations and minimize the risk they pose to both public security or public safety and national security. And how we do that is by employing a victim-centered approach to enforcement, whereby equal value is placed on the identification and stabilization of the victim, and as well as the deterrence, investigation, and prosecution of our traffickers. And then one of the more novel, not necessarily novel, but more new types of we're working to prevent the importation into the United States of goods produced by forced labor and facilitate the prosecution of those criminally benefiting from that forced labor. And as I said, the department integrated 6 different component agencies into the center, and we're actually coming up on our 1-year anniversary, so we're very excited about that. Currently, we have about 50 personnel co-located within the center, and that includes detailed personnel as well as permanent personnel. And we're working on obviously making that much more robust. So one of the things that I guess I can talk about specifically is our two different operations and programs groups. And our operations group supports worldwide human trafficking investigations, as Homeland Security Investigations is situated both domestically and abroad with robust capabilities not only here in the United States but also foreign. So the CCHT is centered here to be able to help our field entities within the department work both sex and forced labor trafficking by coordinating our leads and providing subject matter expertise to those investigations. In addition, we work to augment the enforcement of the prohibition of the importation of goods produced with forced labor through both civil and criminal authorities. And we work to conduct not only criminal investigations, but civil audits and enforcement actions such as suspension and debarment in order to mitigate the risk of human trafficking through our departmental acquisitions and contracts. Lastly, we support all of our enforcement efforts with intelligence by conducting lead analysis, lead validation, case support, strategic analysis, and data analytics. And that's the operations side. Our program side, what we do, again, I talked about earlier, is we incorporate a victim-centered approach throughout, or we're looking to do that, a victim-centered approach throughout DHS policies, as well as our training and practices. One of the things that I also work on is we operate a comprehensive continued presence program that requests, publishes educational materials, conducts training, and improves responsiveness, monitoring, and data collections for that program. And again, continued presence is a temporary immigration designation for non-citizen victims of human trafficking that allows them to stabilize their life and have the ability to and access to resources here in the United States, as well as have a mechanism to support our investigations. And we're really excited because in July we were able to provide our continued presence guideline, a guidebook that went out to the public, so that provides a little bit more robust mechanism by which there's some transparency in how we do things. Not only that, but we conduct and review and assist with DHS human trafficking training through the Blue Campaign, as well as our efforts here, and that's both domestically and abroad. And we coordinate external engagements such as this with our critical partners, including survivors, non-governmental organizations, corporations, and other law enforcement entities. So again, our successes is we've been working here and we've been supporting several significant large-scale criminal investigations, not only through technical assistance, but intelligence and funding. And we're working on identifying intelligence-driven big data methodology to kind of spur our lead development, increase the effectiveness of DHS's efforts to disrupt transnational criminal human trafficking organizations. And like I said previously, in the realm of the forced labor and supply chain, we've initiated, I think, multiple potentially precedent-setting criminal investigations of corporations benefiting from forced labor overseas, including those importing high-demand goods due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And lastly, we were involved in we co-led the development of the Interagency Human Trafficking Intelligence Assessment for the White House National Security Council, pursuant to the National Action Plan for Combating Human Trafficking. Under victim protection and awareness, we're now processing continued presence for all law enforcement nationwide. So by doing that, we're supporting hundreds of human trafficking victims a year and also supporting those investigations. Further, by bringing the continued presence program to the CCHT, we've been working to better serve our federal, state, local, and tribal law enforcement partners and ultimately our trafficking victims by working to shorten the lead time or processing time that it takes for those applications from cradle to receiving benefits. We also have, again, like I said, the Blue Campaign. Their outreach and awareness is co-located within the CCHT, and they continue to raise awareness of the public to recognize and respond to human trafficking, along with collaborating with the center to advance public-facing initiatives. And then lastly, again, we're working in training areas to build knowledge and skills among our assigned staff so that they can better serve as DHS's leading source of human trafficking expertise. And we are partnering with DHS components and Department of State's international law enforcement academies to provide training to domestic and foreign law enforcement, our counterparts there, and strategic partners, as well as build a DHS-wide training catalog to better track our activities and provide quality training to our partners. Lastly, I think we'll talk about is just a way forward. And as we're finishing building the center and we're working here to come up on our 1-year anniversary, we're working to fund permanent positions and augment with contractor support, as well as invest in our administrative tools and IT needs. And we're continuing to work to build public awareness of the CCHT wherever we can. So that's why we're happy to be here, with you all to talk about the center. And we work to continue leveraging our expertise of DHS personnel with robust trainings throughout the global human trafficking community and conduct proactive outreach, that talks about our victim-centered approach and survivor engagement. And I appreciate your time.
Well, we're so happy that you have been joining us, Chris. Thank you so very much. And, you're talking about a book. I'm going to give you a little secret tidbit. We've got a book coming out too, so maybe we can share that with you all because it's got wonderful insight and information. We look forward to working with you on more things. Thank you so much. Chris Elkers, dealing with human trafficking at the federal level and, of course, from Homeland Security. Don't be a stranger. We want you back soon, okay?
Thank you so much for having us.
Not too long ago, I had the opportunity to become friends with someone that I met at an event that was held to really work with a lot of people from Mexico and all the efforts that they've been doing. It was sponsored by our wonderful charter member, Rocio Orozco. And they're attending this event. It was held here in the DC area, was our new best friend, a new charter member, Dr. Lisa Noel Babbage. She is dynamic. She's an author, educator. She is the founder of Maranatha House Ministries and the I Choose Love campaign, bringing awareness, compassion, and clarity to communities in Georgia, and reaching out really much farther than that. She believes corporations have a responsibility in the fight against human trafficking, and we're just we're so thrilled to have her be a part of our team and to join us right now. Dr. Lisa Noel Babbage, welcome to our great Voices Against Trafficking conference.
Thank you so much, Blanqui. It is truly an honor to be
now. I'm hearing a little. I'm hearing.
Folks, as you've already been teased, that can you hear me?
Now we're hearing you better, Lisa, and we're seeing you sideways. So we're hoping that we can get the camera angle fixed because, as you know, this is live Zoom. It's like live radio, which there you go. Show your beautiful face and all your inspirational information. I'm going to let you take it from here, my dear.
Thank you so much. Folks, as you've already heard, being sexually exploited or trafficking brings so many nuanced aspects to the healing route. And those victims in healing have many obstacles that they can face along that trajectory. So what I am involved with is just making sure that we give all the supports that we can to those who have been trafficked in order to make sure that their healing process is a shorter one. That brings me to what I believe is an integral component of the healing process for those who have been trafficked or exploited. Among these interactions are those that victims in healing pursue after their initial.
We're having a little trouble here with our wonderful Dr. Lisa.
Traumas have been.
And so, Lisa, forgive me if I'm stepping on you, my dear, but you're breaking up a little bit.
This is the emotional healing process, and it's one that can take years or decades in some instances based on the ebbs and flows of our daily life. Interactions that can trigger trauma-informed response. Corporations.
Well, I think we're cutting out with Dr.
Okay, let's
Lisa.
see what we can do to fix that.
And you know what, Dr. Lisa? I'll tell you what we should do. Let's put
How
you
is this?
on. Well, let's put you on
as I was
pause.
stating,
Hold
the
on.
ebbs and flows of daily life
No, not
greatly
working.
impact how.
Dr. Lisa, it's not
Okay,
working
we'll come
really
back.
well. Come back to you. What we'll do is we're going to talk to another one of our partners that we just adore. Not that we don't love you, but we're going to try to fix your sound. That's what happens with Zoom. You don't want everything to work perfectly, but God bless it. You know, we're all trying to make this happen, and it's going to be better because you want to hear from Lisa. She's amazing. You know, I have a program called The Hard Question. And on that program, I had the opportunity to introduce and interview a woman who's done outstanding work in the area of dance. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of these dance programs can really hurt young people and young women. And Mary Bodden, who is amazing, has founded Dance Awareness for No Child Exploited. It creates awareness through evidence-based educational materials for dance educators, for the dance teachers, and for parents and concerned adults. And it highlights the damaging consequences of what we're seeing a lot of, and that's the hypersexualizing of children in dance. And boy, Mary Bodden, you have a lot to share. We're delighted that you're with us, and I'm going to turn it right over to you. Now, Mary, you just unmute that little microphone because you got so many words to share with the audience. We don't want them to miss.
Okay, you
there
hear
you
me
go.
now?
Perfection. Go ahead.
Okay, let me, we're all learning all this technical stuff. As a dance educator and the founder of Dance Awareness, No Child Exploited, better known as Dance, I want to thank you for asking me. I want to share the mission of dance, and that is to stop the hypersexualization of children in dance using adult costumes, choreography, and music. Children are not mini adults, and they shouldn't be exposed to adult sexual materials. Media exposure for both children and adults normalizes dance that is not normal. So besides the negative outcomes as outlined by the American Psychological Association, the research shows that hypersexualized children's dance grooms children for future abuse. Researcher Philip Adams calls it corporate pedophilia. The bottom line, a pornified culture dehumanizes humans through trafficking, prostitution, and hypersexualized children's dance. I'd like to introduce you to Jamie Logan. Jamie's a friend. She's been a volunteer at Dance for about a year. And I've asked her to share her dance story of abuse with you. Jamie?
And we're getting her on right this minute.
Excellent.
Because as you know, you and I came together when we were talking about that program that was called Cuties.
Yes.
That took those young girls, and what you had pointed out was they tried to make it look like people were making a big deal about it, but they had these hypersexualized poses that focused on a specific area of their little anatomies. And it was shocking. I think it woke a lot of people up.
Well, I hope it does, but sometimes we get woken up for a minute and we go back to sleep. And unfortunately, if we're going to unite to protect children, we can't go back to sleep on this and go, well, that was one show and that won't be in the culture anymore and I don't need to worry about that.
And there is your beautiful Jamie. She just got on.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello.
I just introduced you. So share your dance story.
Of course. Thank you, Mary. My dance experience in childhood was healthy and safe. But growing up, I was influenced by teen pop icons, sexualized hip hop music, raunchy comedy movies, and Playboy magazines I stumbled on at home. Even these made it easy to normalize things that were not normal. At age 21, I trained with a choreographer who created beautiful, healthy, thought-provoking dances, but her jazz style was burlesque. so I learned how to be seductive and erotic. In one performance, I danced with 2 other girls to It's a Man's World, wearing very little and using folding chairs as props. It was practically a striptease, and my parents were in the audience, and somehow that didn't bother me. I had been so groomed that I did not recognize this as inappropriate, exploitive, and harmful. At that time, I embraced more of my sexual persona. I began consuming pornography and simultaneously suffering from severe chronic anxiety, physical attention seeking, body dysmorphia, disordered eating, and a fixation on wanting to alter my body. At age 23, I started teaching burlesque tease at a pole dancing studio and worked as a go-go dancer at a club. I enjoyed tantalizing a crowd. I loved to dance, and to me, it was a perfectly viable way to earn money. I felt empowered, like a celebrity. But every night as a go-go dancer, I stepped off that box, and I was either being followed, grabbed, and offered money to go somewhere else, or being completely ignored. In both scenarios, I was no longer human. And it was not until this year that I discovered that that was commercial sex work. I was a pornographic visual stimulus, an object of arousal and consumption. Luckily, at age 25, I left. And luckily for me, my exposure to pornography and sexualized dance only lasted through my early 20s, but it still groomed me to become an object, even with a healthy childhood dance experience. If my experience were more like the current generation, with novelty porn accessible at high speed on devices that lived in my pocket, if I had dance teachers telling me how to bump and grind in tiny outfits before puberty, if I had a profile on every major social media app with boys asking for nudes and older men contacting me about where to meet or how to make extra cash, I likely would have paid for plastic surgery. I likely would have stepped into pornography, and I would have accepted the cash for late night offers. For the past year, I've been interviewing other dancers like myself and dance educators. And one thing I can affirm is that pornographic media and harmful dance has shown to play a role in increased self-objectification, decreased self-esteem, accelerated engagement in risky sexual behavior, and a lack of understanding in regard to consent and red flags for abuse, grooming, and trafficking. It's time that the world recognizes harmful dance and the pornified culture as grooming. Children, kids deserve to feel seen, loved, and known without exploitation, objectification, or abuse. Thank you.
Jamie, thank you so much for sharing your dance story of abuse. I really think we need to focus in on the importance of sharing these harmful stories because they expose the culture to harmful dance. And that's the way we can protect children. So friends, dance needs your help. We need you, your friends, and your organization to share their dance story with us. To do so, go to danceawareness.com, go to the heading under Take Action. There's a drop-down. Go to Share Your Dance Story. Once there on that platform page, share your dance story, and you can do it anonymously or with your name. You'll also note that there's a button at the top of that page. It's called Share Social. And we have that so that you can share this campaign with your friends and other organizations. We have emails, social media posts, everything you're going to need to share so that we can get these dance stories exposed. I'd also like to invite you to sign up for the free dance newsletter. It comes for only 3 times a year. It's chock full of articles with dance educators and national experts, and they'll keep you up to speed on this issue. You go to resources, there's a drop down that says newsletter. So friends, we all know children. We all love children. And today, right now, we need to protect children. So I'm going to ask you to share your dance story, sign up for the free dance newsletter, and then join the dance team. Of course, no movement experience is necessary. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Mary Bodden. As always, we just enjoy hearing from you and her her experience was very compelling. We're now watching so much. We become aware of what happened to young women that were in the Olympics. We need to be more protective of our kids. And we also want to encourage you to support Mary, but also don't forget you can go to Voices Against Trafficking. You'll see Mary's link there as well. We appreciate you more than you know. Thank you, Mary Bodden. And now we have another dynamic former federal agent. Eric Karen is very special to us at Voices Against Trafficking because he's going to show you about Switched On. And I mean, he's written this great book about the heart and soul of a special agent, spent 25 years as a diplomat, U.S. special agent working with Interpol. He was in the Middle East. He received the United States Attorney General's Award for his endeavors in fostering the interest of United States national security. But in that, he has a lot of understanding of what happens on the ground because, you know, we're seeing, and I know our founder, Andi Buerger, will talk about more later, that the issue of human trafficking is right up there with drug trafficking and surpassing it. And so we're honored. He is our special liaison at Voices Against Trafficking with all the federal agencies. In fact, we thank him for getting our good friend Chris Elkers on the show from Homeland Security. Eric Karen, can't wait to have you talk and get us switched on.
Hey, BQ, what a great honor to be here with you. Thank you for having me. And it's an honor and a privilege to be part of VAT and all the great work that you do. I just want to spend a few moments with you and your audience to really highlight the great need for your organization, for VAT, because more than ever, Voices Against Trafficking is so much needed. And one of the reasons why is because of resources that the federal government is, quite frankly, not getting from Congress. And two, COVID in the numbers that I see alone, based on the numbers I've seen from DHS, from the Department of Homeland Security, has troubled me when I look at them, in that they are more than half of as where they're at today. They're much less than they were a year ago. Case initiatives alone, 520, just case initiatives, 520. Last year, there were well over 1,000 cases initiated. Indictments and arrests, same thing. They're so low, and for the most part, and probably a big part, is due to COVID. And you know, bad guys out there, the transnational crime groups, will exploit COVID to their advantage. They don't care about COVID, and so transnational criminal groups here in the U.S. as well as all over the world will exploit three things to their advantage besides COVID. Of course, COVID at the heart of it. They will exploit trade to their advantage. They will exploit travel, and they will exploit telecommunication, all to their advantage. All in the human trafficking area will continue to explode in the coming year. And that's why Voices Against Trafficking is so needed to help in partnership with our federal partners on the ground, as well as our state and local enforcement agencies, because they just don't have the resources, as you know, BQ, to do what is needed to be done. And Voices Against Trafficking has a great amount of resources to help in the efforts to identify and to combat human trafficking. And one other note, BQ, and a great concern of mine, I know is it to you as well, is what's happening in just Afghanistan in the last month. The Taliban is taking over Afghanistan, and they know no borders. They will exploit the 3 T's: trade, travel, telecommunication, in the area of human trafficking, never mind drug trafficking. But the human trafficking that will happen in that, it's not just Afghanistan, it's all the regional countries around them: Iran, China, Pakistan, India. They will that human trafficking, if you will, region now will just explode because of the Taliban running Afghanistan. And it's coming to America as well, besides Europe. So we collectively need to be switched on. And I really commend the great work that Voices Against Trafficking is doing to help identify and prosecute these transnational criminal groups out there.
Well, Eric, we thank you for being our special Voices Against Traffic liaison there with all these federal agencies. And of course, your wonderful book, Switched on: The Heart and Mind of a Special Agent, just terrific. It's eye-opening. And we really appreciate all that you're doing for us as well, Eric Karen. And now we've got Lisa Babbage, who is joining us. And she is the founder of the Maranatha House Ministry. She has got this wonderful campaign called Choose Love, which is bringing awareness, compassion, and clarification to communities in Georgia. And Lisa, I am looking forward to hearing everything that you have to say on your efforts that are really profound in the area of fighting human trafficking. There she is.
Hello. We're going to try this again. I am so thrilled to be following Eric because he actually segued perfectly. As Blanquita said, I am in Georgia and we have several campaigns that are looked at building unity in our communities. But let's step a bit back as how Voices Against Trafficking has joined with our organization to really complete that full picture of wholeness. And what I truly believe is that so many victims in healing have a very long road to recovery. Many times we often think about the physical capacity of trauma and how it impacts those who are survivors. But the emotional piece, one that we don't have funding for, as Eric just shared. And I truly believe that corporations have an integral part in helping victims assimilate back into life. You know, many times we think about nonprofits and government organizations as those that must bear the brunt. But believe it or not, folks, businesses, corporations, and community service groups actually are intertwined in that healing process because those are the businesses, these are the groups of individuals that survivors interact with every day. I would just say, consider your own day today. Think about the fact that you probably went through a drive-through this morning and got coffee. Perhaps you were called to a meeting unexpectedly and had a schedule change. Maybe you even showed up to work early this morning and you ran across the janitorial staff, something that is out of the ordinary. These changes in a day that we all experience are without incident, very minimal to those of us who have not been exploited or trafficked. But when you are coming out of that past, even these little nuanced changes to our day can be a trigger to trauma. And that's why corporations, organizations, and individuals play a key role in the healing process. One thing that we're doing here in Georgia and in Florida through the organizations that I'm a part of is that we are developing curriculum, not just for people who are listening, but for businesses to adopt protocols and procedures that help act as safeguards for those who have been trafficked or sexually exploited. And they also act as stopgaps to prevent more victims from falling in the trafficking or sexual exploitation arena. This is so important because it puts more eyes on the problem, it shares the wealth for funding, and it also gives victims that safety net of advocacy that they do not have in every community. Right now, we are in the clinical trials portion of creating our curriculum that will be adopted by organizations from coast to coast. They will actually become certified, not just the staff, but the organization and their organizational procedures will be certified by Freedom After the Trauma, as well as Maranatha House Ministries. Those joint industries under a partnership with Voices will put the tools in the hand of businesses that interact with victims as part of the general public. So these now survivors have a toehold to freedom that they wouldn't have had before. Every single interaction that they have throughout their day with these certified companies will be trauma-free to the highest extent possible. And that will grant them the extension of life to fully assimilate back into a life that they perhaps took for granted before. This is so key in the healing process, and I really need you to get a picture of it, because every time a survivor is re-traumatized emotionally, socially, it's a setback of gargantuan proportions. And we're imagining a train derailing and how far that trajectory can go. But when corporations and organizations become certified in trauma-informed practices that help us provide the safety net, what they have done is extend the path of healing for every single one of these survivors. It's critically important for our country as well as our bordering countries to make sure that this safety net is not in a vacuum, but that it extends from coast to coast. As I said, we're in the clinical trials portion. We are looking at trials all along the East Coast and to the Southwest. We have pockets of individuals who are going through our curriculum, going through our questionnaires. These are licensed professional counselors. These are survivors. These are frontline workers in the anti-trafficking movement. And collectively, that data is helping us inform our practices even more so that when this program is unleashed on corporate America next year, we will have a product not only that we're proud of, but one that does what we require it to do in the anti-trafficking movement, and that is provide the safety net to survivors and give each one of us the opportunity to take a piece of this puzzle and own it and have that accountability. So we're really excited to be having this project and to be able to be part of Voices and share the information with you guys. Again, it's in the clinical trials process, and we are at that stage of being able to implement it within 2 quarters. So we're very excited about that part of allowing corporations to come into being a collective voice against trafficking.
Well, we're excited for you, Dr. Lisa, and we just love you. And we're so happy that you're one of our charter members. Thank you, my dear, so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, to you too. You know, the founder of Voices Against Trafficking has had her own amazing experience in life. She is a survivor of trafficking, and she'll share a little bit with that about that with you. Andi Buerger, and she was also the founder of Beulah's Place. She has an amazing story. We're so proud of her. She has rescued literally hundreds of young people from just having to suffer the brutality and finding a path and a way, a new way of life because of her own trauma and experience. We're so honored that she's our founder. And she, in fact, has documented that journey with her own book called A Fragile Thread of Hope, One Survivor's Quest to Rescue. It's available on Amazon.com, but she's heard all around the country. She's on radio and television, and more importantly, she's on the ground trying to take the fight, not just with Beulah's Place, but now as the leader of Voices Against Trafficking. And I'm very honored to introduce my good friend and our fearless leader, Andi Buerger.
Well, thank you so much, Blanquita. I appreciate that. And to everyone who has spoken so far today, you know, it's such an honor to be founder and chair of Voices Against Trafficking, because together, as you said earlier, the strength of many voices speaking as one is going to make such a difference for victims and people that are struggling through this. And, you know, part of that struggle, a lot of people don't realize, is PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. And I think a lot of folks feel that, oh, well, that's what, you know, people who have been to war or in the military, you know, suffer from. And it's not really just that, although that's true. Someone who's been in a terrible car accident, somebody who's watched a horror movie maybe when they were little, like I did, and, you know, it spooks them, and they've had nightmares or something triggers them, and it reminds them of that trauma. It could be something simple, the death of, or complicated, like the death of a loved one, a divorce, you know, things like that, a long-term illness. But for victims of trafficking, and I am one, I was a survivor, and so for those of us who have had that trauma, those triggers are lifelong. There is no cure for PTSD. There are ways to manage it. There are ways to deal with it. And now, you know, 6 decades into life, I'm finally speaking about it and my own struggles with post-traumatic stress syndrome. Not just 17 years of child sex trafficking, although that would be a load, but a lot of losses in my life, other things that have happened. And one of the things that I think people don't realize is that 7.7% of the American population has PTSD in some form. But over 70% of adults experience a trauma sometime in their life. And so it's really important that we talk a little bit about that. And I'll give you an example. When I was a little bit younger than I am today, I was in a work situation, and somebody came up behind me and they put their hand on my shoulder from behind. And I must have flinched or jerked or something, because the gentleman said, "Whoa, who hurt you?" If only he knew. If only he knew my entire immediate family and other members. If only he knew, the near date rape. If only he knew all the trauma that had been in my life. And I hadn't quite figured it out because I hadn't been to counseling yet. But post-traumatic stress syndrome is an anxiety-driven disorder. It can cause depression. People will self-medicate a lot of times, whether it's alcohol, drugs, prescription drugs, or otherwise. Sometimes it's other things. They can even become isolated, which is really, really not the best thing to do. Someone who's struggling with that needs people to listen, needs people to be there. But for trauma victims, like victims of human trafficking, they need the mental support, they need the emotional support, they definitely need to have physical help and physical support. But there are times where I'm sure people who are watching don't know what to do. So one of the things you can do is simply offer to be there, whether it's by phone or by Zoom or in person. Even if you say nothing, if somebody's having an anxiety issue or they're experiencing a trigger they can't understand, sometimes I have to tell my husband, I don't know what's going on, but I just don't feel like me right now. And it's okay. We need to be okay with someone telling us that. We don't want to fix it. We don't want to try and figure it out. We just want them to be okay with having that feeling, so that they can process it. Of course, it's better if we can get some counseling. It's better if we can have better diets. It's better if we have a support system. But not everybody has that. Some people are embarrassed to say that, I don't understand what's going on, and I don't really feel comfortable sharing it. And for females who are twice as likely to suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome, regardless of the cause, for them it's a battle between trying to tell a doctor or a friend it's not depression, it's not hormones, I just don't feel like me, even if they can't identify what that is. So one thing I want to do is encourage people, one, to listen and to be available. If you have someone who is struggling with PTSD, offer to try and get them some help. If they're a vet, of course, there are a lot of VA services. If they're the person down the street, someone in your church, in your school, we want to make sure that we offer ourselves as safe, sound people that they can trust if they need to bring their troubles to. Because at the end of the day, I had to create a new normal. I had to figure out how to deal with these ups and downs or triggers that I knew what caused them, but I didn't know how to really manage them. And it took a lot of years of counseling and practice to do that. Most people would never have said, oh, she's got, anxiety issues. But at the end of the day, we all have something that causes us anxiety. Trauma victims from trafficking, they live with that in spades, because every time their trigger happens, it's almost like reliving the actual event. And so we especially want to, one, keep victims from becoming victims, but also the ones we rescue, the ones that we can help. We want to help them get through that everyday experience of how to deal with those triggers, how not to relive the horrible, evil things that have happened to them. And for those of you who have family members or are family members of someone who's been traumatized that way, whether they were abducted, whether they were, violated by people they knew, whether they were simply sold, to someone else, we want to make sure that we take special care, because that's one thing that's hard right now. Everybody is stressed out. The whole country has PTSD, so to speak, since the pandemic started. People are afraid of their health. They're afraid for their jobs, the lockdowns, the meltdowns, everything all in one pot. Our country has experienced a huge trauma, and other countries too. But in the U.S., we see images of things that are just disturbing, whether it's Afghanistan, kids on the Mexico border, it could be things in our own neighborhood. All of that causes a little bit of trauma for people that are not experienced or not used to seeing that or being around it. So I want to encourage everyone, please take care of yourself. Please offer to be there for someone else who maybe needs a little bit of care. But remember that PTSD, while it can't be cured, it can certainly be something you can live with and you can actually be quite successful. And I want you to know from someone who is a survivor leader that it's definitely possible. So thank you for listening, and I hope this has been helpful. And I'm going to hand it back to Blanquita.
Well, and what you haven't even shared with them, but I know firsthand about you, my dear friend, is all these children that you've helped. Some of them have been so stricken with PTSD that they can't even speak, but somehow because they see you and you have that special gift of having lived through it and have the way to help them come back, you've rescued so hundreds of kids, and we all appreciate your bravery and your heroism.
Well,
We've got a great rest of the show, and I have to tell you that we have another terrific leader. Deborah Sigmund is such an interesting lady. She's been my friend for a long time. She has an organization called Innocence at Risk. She's also had her hand in the founding and development of the airline ambassadors, but she's so successful that she has been endorsed by the United States Department of State for her efforts on behalf of millions of women and children that have been trafficked annually worldwide. And she has produced an awareness DVD that is used globally to help countless people to protect these children that are trafficked on these major airlines. She and Nancy Rivard have done just incredible work. So it's my honor to present my dear friend, Deborah Sigmund, the founder of Innocence at Risk.
Thank you, Blanquita. And I also want to thank everyone who's joining us today. We hope that you will learn something from this webinar, and we all want to share with you. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about Innocence at Risk, because I know we have some new people with us today. Innocence at Risk was established in 2005 because I learned that this was happening to women and children all over the world, but no one talked about it. So my friends and I said, we have to create awareness. We worked with the State Department, and soon we launched Innocence at Risk in 2005. We knew that we had to educate the public because we saw early on that awareness was prevention. As a mother of a teenage daughter, I was grateful to hearing about this issue so I could be a better mother and more protective. And all of my friends felt the same way. So we began having events in embassies, churches, offices, wherever we could. And it wasn't just me talking about the issue. We had well-known people of authority, certainly members of Congress, representatives from the State Department, from the Trafficking Persons Office. We had fellow nonprofits speak, as Polaris, Shared Hope, join us, because I knew early on that one organization could not do this. We all needed to work together. And that's why Voices Against Trafficking is so important. So we were having an event at the Embassy of Colombia, and a flight attendant heard about it. She told her friend, I have to meet her. Flight attendants, we see what she's talking about. We don't know what to do about it. So we met, and I said, her name was Sandra Ferrini, senior flight attendant from American Airlines. I said, what are you saying? Children getting on planes, they don't know where they are. They're clearly not with a family member. They sometimes they don't have the proper clothes for the weather. They look afraid. They don't want to talk to anyone. They don't need eye contact. And often they look drugged. And I said, we will help you. So this was 2008. Innocence at Risk met with Polaris, who ran the national hotline number. We created a brochure for flight attendants. I hope you can see this, which basically gave flight attendants the facts. Later today, I will give you more facts. But this was basically to tell them what to look for, what it was happening everywhere. giving them a national hotline number. With this brochure, one flight attendant, Sandra Ferrini, began training flight attendants on every flight. And in turn, they were training each other. It was absolutely beautiful. But we could not keep producing these brochures. By the end of the year, in 2008, we had 1,000 flight attendants, not just from American, but all airlines. And it was a wonderful thing. And we were excited because the stories, what we were learning from flight attendants was unbelievable. And this has all been documented, and Polaris was keeping records of our flight attendant initiative. Girls coming 3 times a week from Moscow with one-way tickets, thinking they were going to work as models in New York, but they were flying into Chicago. Situations like that. Girls getting on a plane, even flying first class. They have no idea where they were going to go when they reached Miami, but they met their boyfriend on the internet and he gave them a ticket. Unbelievable stories. We've learned a lot. At the end of that year, I was in a meeting with Homeland Security, and I mentioned to them that we were, Innocence at Risk was working with flight attendants. I honestly thought that they were going to laugh at me. They said, "You have flight attendants?" I said, "Yes." And they said, "Can we meet?" I said, "Of course." So he took Sandra. We met later that week. We met with initially Homeland Security, DHS, and ICE. Later on, the next meeting, we had FBI, air marshals. We had Polaris come, who ran the hotline. It was a table of 20. An incredible group who was all dedicated. And we realized from one flight attendant, we had started something really big. And we had now this huge initiative, which was unbelievable. So soon after several meetings, Homeland Security said, it was believed it was ICE, they said, "Well, we don't have to go through the hotline. Well, we will establish a rapid protocol where the flight attendant or anyone on the plane with knowledge would report it to a flight attendant, and the flight attendant would then tell the captain, the pilot, to call ahead. And then the plane is mapped by Homeland Security, CBP, ICE, and also the FBI. These are our heroes. Innocence at Risk has watched since 2008, flight attendants, or 2009 rather, with Homeland Security, watched law enforcement meet these planes or sometimes wait until they leave and follow them. But they rescue these women and children. And I just can't say enough about their work, and they should be applauded. So after we had Blue Lightning, later that year, I met Nancy Rivard, who was the CEO of Airline Ambassadors. And I gave a presentation and asked her to please incorporate this in what you do. You know, report situations, red flags, which it takes about 2 minutes to train a flight attendant. So the flight attendants jumped on the opportunity, and we began absolutely working together to expand this. We testified to Congress, gave a congressional briefing to the airlines. They began training each other. And now with all that's gone on with the COVID situation, we believe that, and Homeland Security has agreed that we need to take this to the public. So I really want to give you the very brief 1, 2, 3 of what you can do when you keep your eyes open and see a situation on a plane, in an airport, in a train, wherever. But please do that. So I'm going to tell you what the Blue Lightning campaign is. So I think we have a slide just to show you initially what Blue Lightning is. But I'll tell you what Homeland Security would like us to know. The definition of human trafficking, to make certain you keep this in your mind. It's the use of force, fraud, coercion to obtain commercial sex. 2 million women and children fall into this every year. The media often refers to smuggling and trafficking as if it's the same thing. Well, it's not. Smuggling involves movement and it involves going across the border, but it is voluntary. Trafficking is a crime against an individual, and it is not voluntary. They are forced by fraud or coercion, and it's up to all of us to watch this, to see it can happen to anyone. Mostly they're teenagers, but it can happen to anyone. And on planes, trains, buses, wherever, malls. Please keep your eyes open. You know, one of the most telling stories I heard from a survivor was that she told me once, after she heard my presentation about working with flight attendants, she said, you know, I was on those planes. I was on those planes when I was being trafficked. And no one looked at me. People looked at me, but they didn't care. I could tell they just didn't understand and they didn't care. But if I had known there was anyone who cared, I would have had hope. So let's give all these potential victims out there hope. And when we see something, report it. Report it to anyone in uniform, wherever you are. If you're not on a plane or train, call 911. If you are on a plane, and tell the flight attendant. If you get no response, then you can call the DHS number. And please put this in your wallet. 866-347-2423. 866-347-2423. So let's all do something. We can see it better here. Let's all do something. Got it. And we'll send it out to everyone. Beautiful. But let's all do something, please. We can make a difference. Open your eyes and we can save lives.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're the best, Deborah. We love you. Thank you so much. Innocence at Rick's. Beautiful, beautiful presentation. You know, now it's going on 3 years ago when we kind of put this idea of forming this partnership with a lot of groups. And we wanted to do something on the Hill. And I said, well, you know, I have a really wonderful friend who's been a member of Congress for a number of years. He's a guy who's served his country before he was elected in office. He was a Navy pilot. He did missions all over, you know, as a naval aviator. He was in the Gulf War. He flew missions in the Persian Gulf, and he has been quite a hero. And I thought, well, I'm going to call my buddy, Congressman Pete Olson from the 22nd District in Texas, out there in Sugar Land, and big area, hits Houston. And so I said, Congressman Pete Olson, we'd like to see if it's possible, if we could do something and get your support, and maybe you'll help us. And he said, to help you? Heck, I'll be your sponsor. You can do it at the, you know, the community area in the Congress. And that's really such an interesting area, because that is, in fact, right there in the Congress. It's the citizens, the Citizen Center right in the building. And I said, Pete, are you sure? He said, no. He said, I have my own family experience, and I know he's going to share it with us. We're giving him a very important award. But honestly, the person that needs to present that award to him is our wonderful Andi Buerger, the founder and the chairman of Voices Against Trafficking. This is our highest award, the first time we've ever given it to a member of Congress. We just absolutely love Pete Olson. We wish you were still there in the Congress, because they a lot like you, Pete. You're the best. Andi, I'm going to turn it over to you. Well, I don't know if we have Miss Andi. And I think we will in a second, but she'll come up in the end. There she is. All right. I love Zoom. We're working out the kinks. Andi, you got to get to make this presentation to our wonderful Pete. And we need a little volume so that we can hear your great voice. And we're going to get the volume here because Andi has a lot to say to Pete. There you go.
Oh.
Start again, Andi.
Oh, okay. Are we on? Okay. Okay. Congressman Pete Olson, I just have to tell you, you know you're one of my personal heroes, but you are a hero to so many, and it is an honor as chairman of Voices Against Trafficking to award you the very select and the very special Voices of Courage Award, because it takes courage to stand up when other people's run away or when they won't show up. And the kids that we've rescued, we always tell them, if you get up and show up, half the battle's won. But you did more than that. You went to bat for us. You helped Voices Against Trafficking become what it is today. And I am so personally grateful to you as a survivor. And I think of you and your family all the time because of what your daughter went through. So without further ado, congratulations. Thank you for being here. And I can't wait to hear what you have to tell us today.
Well, Andi, thank you so much. It's such an honor to have this award. And a special howdy to my great friend, BQ, another Texas lady. Hi. Well, my dear friends, it is an honor to be here for the first VAT Forum. Thank you, Andi, for all your efforts on human trafficking, BQ, the board, all the speakers, and all of y'all. Your presence sends a strong message. We will end human trafficking. As BQ mentioned, I'm a Texan. 9 years in the Navy, worked for Phil Graham and John Cornyn, 2 Texas senators, was in Congress for 12 years, retired 19 months ago. All that means is I don't have to wear a tie now, but I still care about this effort because, as was alluded to, my oldest daughter, my only daughter, Kate, was on a study abroad in South Africa in 2015. She's walking to class. Car pulls up, stops her. 5 armed guys jump out of the car. They try to grab her. For 10 seconds, she almost became trafficked. Luckily, she got away, but I can't tell you the pain I felt. My wife felt as well. Hearing our daughter hysterical, thousands of miles away from home because some thugs tried to grab her and take her into a life of sex trafficking. And thank you, Andi, for also bringing up PTSD. Our daughter, Kate, came back. Thank God. Most people don't come back, so we got her back. We're thankful for that. But as Andi said, Kate has some issues that you can't really predict. She's been taught like Andi how to deal with the problems. One example is she's up there in Dallas. She got back home, take care of her friend's dog. The dog gets loose. Kate's running around the street, trying to stop the cars. Hey, don't hit the dog. Don't hit the dog. Go catch the dog. Nobody stopped. She started feeling funny, and Andi knows what's coming. She started getting anxiety, and she went to her therapist and said, Kate, this is because what happened in South Africa.
Right.
After you broke away, you tried to get cars to stop to help you. Nobody stopped. So the point is, Andi is right on. These victims aren't just victims of physical abuse, it's mental abuse, PTSD. So thank you, Andi, for making us aware of that. And again, I'm honored to be on this great effort. I mean, at one point about all you guys listening here, you think this may happen in bad parts of America, parts of South Africa, bad parts of the world. This happens all over the world in some wealthy parts of our country, the world. For example, as BQ mentioned, my home is Fort Bend County, Texas. The richest county per capita of all of Texas. Average salary is over $100,000. Guess what? On March 3rd of this year, less than 1 year ago, 30 people, 30 were arrested for trafficking. They got those bad guys with only 1 victim. And you guys probably know this too. The biggest thoroughfare for trafficking in America is Interstate 10, going west from downtown Houston to Kenny, Texas, right through my home congressional district. And it was mentioned the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All the people that came for our Super Bowl, over 20% came there to find sex, not to watch a football game, but to find sex in kids that are sex slaves. So thank you, thank you, thank you. The event is amazing. And oh, by the way, Annie mentioned it. Get ready, guys. There's a book coming out.
The book.
The book is coming out. This is a great book, guys. Thank you for the award. And most importantly, thank you, thank you, thank you for giving these victims and their families hope. God bless y'all.
Well, God bless you, Pete Olson. You know, we love you to death and we're not letting you go. You're going to become another charter member of Voices Against Trafficking because you believed in us when no one else believed in us and supported us to make sure that and you know, the other thing that people need to know about Congressman Pete Olson is that he made sure that it was a bipartisan effort and you got members from both sides of the aisle to support us because we believe in Voices Against Trafficking is not right versus left. It is right versus wrong. So God bless you. We really appreciate it. And Andi, I think you have a little bit look at that. Andi, you want to come in and talk about this book real quick? Can we get our Miss Andi there? There she is. You see that? We don't hear you, Andi. We need to get your mic back on.
Our first book from Voices Against Trafficking called Voices Against Trafficking, The Strength of Many Voices Speaking as One. We know that the more voices we gather, the more people that say, yes, I want to be part of the solution and not just watch it happen, not let somebody else take care of it, the better chances we have of actually making changes. It is a human rights movement at the core because 21st century slavery needs to end. So this book is going to be out in November on Amazon.com. We are going to keep everyone posted by Facebook. But yes, we definitely would love to have a chapter from our favorite representative, Pete Olson, for next year's book. Our goal is to have this book get in the hands of every governor, every attorney general, and every member of Congress in the United States. Our friends in Mexico and all over the world, they also want copies. They also want to be part of the solution. So please do yourself a favor. If the Library of Congress has accepted this book, you're going to want it in your library come November. So thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you all at our next conference very soon.
Well, thank you, Andi. We want to thank all of our great speakers. We want to thank, of course, Beulah's Place and the Oregon State University CoLab and our charter media members and our charter VAT members and all of you around the world, because honest to God, you're going to keep your eyes open. You're going to make a difference for the good. We have to take good and make sure that the young and the innocent are protected. And that's what Voices Against Trafficking is about. We hope that you're going to join us. You go to voicesagainsttrafficking.com. You can follow us on facebook.com. You're going to see this video out. Also, you can follow us on Twitter. And that's easy. It's Voices Against, capital T and the number 1. Voices Against T1. And if you want a resource hotline for trafficking, call 1-888-373-7888. Also, the National Child Abuse Hotline. And please, if you know the problem is that people are afraid to even talk about what's going on in families, and we need for you to help. The number is 1-800, and it is 422-4453, 1-800-422-4453. You can join us and become a lifetime member for $25. We'd love to have you do that. Again, going to voicesagainsttrafficking.com and join us. And there was a great saying by William Wilberforce, and it really rings true. You may choose to look the other way, but you can never say now that you didn't know. Help us to end the evil of human trafficking, 21st century slavery. Be an activist and protect the innocent. I'm Blankita Kellum, and that's going to do it for us here on Voices Against Trafficking. Thank you.